do you use growth hacking to keep people coming back for more? All right, so let's hop right to it. Question number one. Growth hacking means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What does growth hacking mean to you? I guess I'll kick it off with Saya.
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, growth hacking is kind of this, you're a little scrappy, you have a lot of energy, and of course it's like pushing towards the growth of the company as a whole. So, I think about it as a combination of being able to look, a little bit outside of the regular boundaries of what would be the regular day-to-day of your marketing efforts, and get something done by doing a lot of testing and different strategies to push towards that growth of the overall business. And I think, as Denise was saying, it doesn't really matter the size of the company. I've been part of really small companies, so like 8 to 50 people, and a lot of times when you're that size, the marketing team is essentially also a growth hacking team, because you have to try and push towards that growth. But I think even in a larger company, it kind of allows you to use the extra resources, again, to look a little bit outside of the day-to-day and really push towards something that you haven't tried before. So that's the kind of the way that I think about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's kind of like the David and Goliath story where you have this kind of smaller, leaner party that is kind of up against something larger. In the startup world, it's kind of like, being a startup with maybe one person on a marketing team that's facing a large company with a lot of funding and a lot of employees that has a full marketing team at their disposal, and kind of having to use that small budget, limited group of people to kind of go up against those larger entities and kind of find scrappy ways of doing it, I think.
Yeah, everything that they said, and then I guess to tie it together, I always think of growth hacking as everything they said, but also additionally it's a discipline. So these are people who, no matter what kind of company they're in, or even not necessarily even in marketing positions, but they can draw the relationships between past marketing tools, platforms, events, to literally every time something new comes out. When Snapchat came out, did you have a growth hacking mentality to know how to test it and what that might mean for you?
Yeah, that's really well said. I think true growth hackers are always growth hacking the way that they're growth hacking. So it's kind of meta in that sense. Also, just a reminder to everyone on the line, if you have any questions that you want to add in, I'm going to be pulling those up live. So feel free to drop them in the chat box at the bottom of the panel to your right-hand side of the screen. So let's hop on over to question number 2. What are some growth hacking strategies that you've found success with? I'll go ahead and guess we can start with Elle on this one.
Well, I think the kind of most familiar ones are definitely social media, but I think that kind of going beyond that, why social media works is because of relationships. And so to me, the number one thing you can do with growth hacking is align yourself with other individuals that could be beneficial to you and your company, as well as that you can be beneficial to them, of course. But I think if you can, if you have an interest in something exciting, and one of my favorite things to do is like a podcast, for example. What does a podcast do? It kind of gives you a voice and you can talk to this large group of people on a certain topic, but what it actually does for the presenter of a podcast is gives them an opportunity to reach out to somebody influential in the community and say, hey, can I have you on my podcast? And that's the real beauty of the podcast, and that's what makes it a growth hacking strategy, because suddenly now you know this person and you're promoting them, and maybe down the line that's something that you can say, hey, remember when I had you on my podcast? We have something coming up that might be interesting to your audience. If you want to share it with your crew on Instagram or whatever, I've even got some promo photos you can use and some text, so it's great. It's kind of building those relationships that I would say is like my number one strategy, whether you're doing that via social, podcasting, or otherwise.
That makes total sense. And actually, to build on that, some of the things I've done that have worked really well are also relational, but I'm focused specifically on how I should craft the touch points with each customer along the journey. So, for example, when I was at MakeAbout, we really had no idea how to figure out, is social media working for us? So we took what is now a common strategy, but put together surprise and delights and found people who are on the spectrum of angry to happy and aligned that with our CRM system to dynamically send them physical things in the mail that showed them we care about them. And actually, so now I mentor all the companies at the Techstars Internet of Things incubator, and a lot of them are pursuing this same kind of thing, but with Slack. They're creating Slack bots that are looking for keywords and popularity in different kinds of, or in different channels across all of Slack that's public, and then dynamically sending those people, automatically sending those people messages based on those keywords. Someone at General Assembly actually just received a month's worth of Red Bull because one of our public conversations got, one of our public conversations had so much interaction, Red Bull's bot identified it and then mailed us a bunch of Red Bull. So it's stuff like that that really increases the specific touch points that influences what you were saying, Elle, about the overall relationship.
Actually really liked what you said about finding that platform or finding that like audience that you want to target and kind of figuring out the best way to hit that that target. I did a really cool experiment just using something as basic as like AdWords and some landing pages. So you can use AdWords to kind of help in some ways dictate some of your SEO strategy as well, because you can see what keywords are aligning for conversions and easily test like different kinds of traffic to your landing pages quite easily. Because you're paying for it, and being able to find out exactly what is converting very quickly will allow you then to kind of tie that into your larger strategies. So we were able to do a very basic test on a bunch of different keywords in AdWords, and then tie that into our SEO strategy, which it helps inform like content, helps inform some of your social strategy too. So that's sort of like another way that you can help align those things as well.
Awesome. So question number 3, going off of that, how do you work with other teams within your company to growth hack on a regular basis? John, I'll pitch this one to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It changes with the makeup of each team too. We actually semi-recently brought on this really stellar CMO. He comes from Expedia, and he comes from this company called The Place for Mom. And I think that it's the way he fosters it is what I should say. We work together on a daily basis to figure out, well, if this is a new way we need to talk to someone, or if this is a new audience for a new product, then what are all the standard ways we've gone in? And then based on your research, what are all the high-risk tactics that we can take that are unproven so far? The reason why he's so influential in this is he knows that we need to do those things, and he can put it in context of the bigger picture and figure out how much money we have to test it, and then what the time frame should be, and then help align metrics. So that's kind of the short of it. It's really team-based.
Yeah, I think that's for me, growth hacking. Like, you kind of go back to that whole like scrappy atmosphere and like energy and the way that you need to kind of really think outside of the usual strategies, and that makes sense. But to tie that into every team within your org is also really important too. So the way that I've done it previously is kind of in 2 separate ways. So if I'm helping another team, it'll be kind of to figure out what their blockers are. So a good example is that we at Bitly, we work really closely with our sales team. And we noticed that it's kind of hard to understand exactly like when they should be reaching out to certain prospects, when they should, there was a real like timing issue. So what we did was we set up a really kind of easy Slack bot integration that kind of goes back to Slack. So John, thanks for introducing that. But it kind of pinged the right salespeople every single time their prospect did something on our website. So whether it was downloading an ebook or attending one of these webinars that we set up, kind of allows the salesperson to understand the context and the timing of the conversations that they can be having. So it's just kind of like one thing that was like really quick and easy and a win to help another team grow. But then there's also like the other side of things where you can't just work in a silo. You need the other resources too. So I'm a marketer by trade. I don't know heavy development skill. But we have a project here where we're trying to work on a database to make the data within our company a lot more free and accessible by everyone in the company. So, you can work with other teams and see if they have extra resources or time or interest, and maybe they're willing to like pitch in on your project too, and that kind of gives you an ability to do a lot more than you would otherwise. So I think that's kind of the way that I would sum up working with other teams for sure.
Yeah, and I think you guys kind of both spoke to internally how to kind of use these strategies. But one of the things I think can also add to that is bringing that internal discussion externally. So, for example, if you have like a really fun corporate culture and you're doing funny things on your day-to-day life in the office, if you can like share those publicly, then that I think gives you some street cred on the social sphere and also just makes you look like a more fun, hip company, and really just expands your brand. I know, for example, this week I was on a call and one of my sales guys said, not to flap my own suspenders, but and we all just lost it and we were dying. We were like, who says that, not to flap my own suspenders? That sounds so antiquated. But then we were like having such a laugh over it in person over the lunch hour that we just started tweeting about it. And suddenly we were in this conversation on Twitter and like laughing with each other. And I think when you start to take those things and externalize them, it's a benefit both to your culture as well as to people who are maybe wanting to buy your product down the line and want to know you're a fun and cool company.
Yeah, I really like that. Like having that voice is really important, and especially like with all the external communication like that. I would love to kind of hear more about some of the stuff that you're doing on social because it's something that I haven't really touched before.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
conversation makes it so fun. So it draws people in.
Yeah, that's a really fun story. Thanks for sharing that. So hopping over to question four, what are some companies that do a good job of growth hacking, or maybe some case studies that you've come across that you really admire?
I don't want to steal the Hamilton one that Elle wrote on our blog. I think we're all kind of big fans of that. So, Elle, do you want to tell that story? Because I really liked it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hamilton is like the star of the ball right now, but it's because both Alexander Hamilton, the person, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of the Broadway musical, were both very scrappy individuals, and they kind of did some things that were not very orthodox as far as marketing and getting something up off the ground. And to make Hamilton musical success, I mean, it started with just a simple little thing of doing a rap performance for Barack Obama in the White House that soon became a viral YouTube video. But that wasn't on accident. That was, a planned YouTube video that went viral, and from there he was able to create these other tracks, and they were able to build this momentum even the whole 5 years that the show was in production before it even hit the stage. And then they kind of kept those tactics going once they did hit the stage and started these little mini performances called Ham for Ham, where they would perform for all the people waiting for tickets outside on the street and do these kind of silly song and dance numbers and have people from the cast sing songs from Les Miserables or other unique things, and that kind of drew a YouTube sensation on its own. So again, harnessing the power of YouTube to gather the crowds and really rally people around this new brand.
Yeah, I really think it helped the word of mouth, and I became aware of it very quickly because of stuff like that. So it was definitely, it's definitely like a way of just thinking about something that you didn't have to do, but you ended up doing it, and it created that social atmosphere that you're talking about, which I thought was really impressive.
Yeah, and with the whole social atmosphere, I think that I'd like to tie it back to going back on the whole discipline of everything. So, for two examples, one's a bigger company, Converse. Converse is, it's easier for them to do growth hacking because of budget resources and stuff like that, but it also could be harder because they have so much infrastructure that can get in the way. One case study, and this is years ago, that I really like reteaching and looking over is when they opened up the recording studio in Brooklyn. This whole idea that they're going to serve the independent artist community for free. Let them come to the studio, record, and then have them spread that experience organically, all earned media, and then they were able to take that content and distribute and license it however they wanted to. So I think that it's a way that benefited both parties involved, and whoever at Red Bull had that idea, like, good job for you. But it's something that they must have tested over and over and over again. And then there's a friends company called Hitlist. It's a way for groups to book flights together. So if you need to leave at different times and have different prices, it helps us all get to the same place at the same time. The founder, Jillian, she had not a hard time, but a harder time getting kind of the word out there. So she took a unique approach to content marketing, and instead of just writing a blog post or an ebook, which are still effective tactics, they created a browser extension called WanderTab. So if you've ever used Momentum, every time you open up a new tab, there's a new image and so forth. Hers pulled a high-res image of a location you can fly to from your current location based on your IP address and the current flight price to there. So it was just like beautiful images. It worked perfectly well. It went absolutely viral with people downloading it, and it's just a really good example of a few people putting together good content strategy and thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I really like that. I was kind of thinking about actually podcasts because Elle was brought that up in a previous question, and it just made me think about Serial, the podcast Serial, and how Mailchimp just added their, the mispronunciation even like kind of went viral like when that was a commercial before the every podcast for that show. It kind of made me think about something like they probably didn't even think of that as a potential channel for driving traffic until they said like, hey, this is actually a really good idea. Let's just test this out. And they put it on there, and that went viral. Like I feel like more people know Mailchimp than even know what they really use them, and they know like that Mailchimp sends better email. Like they know the tagline because of a podcast that's super popular, and again, like it went viral and had the word of mouth aspect that you really need for stuff like this. So I thought that was like a really impressive one too.
I really think that idea of viral content, that is just something that really helps, like all of these cases that we're talking about. Is just that piece of content you create that really resonates with people and does go viral. I mean, even just, for example, I have a really thing for vegan cooking blogs, and there's this one particular that I love, Laura Miller. She has a vegan cooking YouTube channel called Raw Vegan Not Gross, and she got this kind of viral acclaim, and now she has her own cooking show on like network TV, but it started as a YouTube show, and even before that it started as an Instagram account. And what happened was, on Instagram she would post these, rather than, if you think about any kind of food blogger, what do they do? They post pictures of their food every day, and it gets kind of boring. So she started posting pictures of her wearing her food as if it was jewelry or a hat or like a whole piece of clothing. Like she would make these like hats out of pineapples, or she would like make this necklace out of all grapes that would be like hanging around her neck like pearls. And it just started this like viral sensation. If you go look at her Instagram account, it's just like full of like food pictures of like wearable art kind of. And that's, now she's got hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers that now watch her YouTube show, then watch her network show. And it's all about kind of creating that content that is unique, that even Food Network or these bigger behemoths that are posting to Instagram, they're just posting pictures of food. And so it's kind of taking that and shaking it up a little bit, and whether it's a YouTube channel, a Twitter feed, or Instagram account, making the content you post there viral and unique.
Yeah, I really love all of the examples that you guys mentioned, and how really growth hacking can be all across the board, and really highlights the importance of constantly testing to find that one thing that is unique and fresh. And just like a really quick example to throw in there, I remember a little while back I came across the free stock photography website called Unsplash, and it's a site that Crew, which is a company that helps set up other companies with freelancers, had built because they were running out of cash, and they just had a little bit left to spare, and they built this separate product that ended up driving tons of traffic for them and saving their business actually, which is really cool. So definitely look into that. But yeah, lots of different things that people can test out.
Yeah, but if I can pay a compliment actually to General Assembly, where full disclosure, I used to work there as well, but they created a product called Dash, which was just a really simple tool to learn HTML and CSS, and that drove a ton of leads for us. So that was definitely something that it was just like a side project that was just launched online, and it's just a way of just driving a bunch of interest in which you wouldn't have had otherwise. It was really great for that. So.
Yeah. So now that we've talked a little bit more about what growth hacking is and some examples and strategies of good growth hacking, I guess we can hop on over to go-to tools. So what are some of the go-to tools that you guys have used in the past or are currently using for growth hacking?
I can kick it off. So for me, like I'm a very hands-on person, so I like to get my hands really dirty and try to figure out like what tools that I can use to actually create new pages, create tests and everything like that. So one of my favorite ones is Unbounce. It's a landing page creator. It's actually used for mainly used for A/B testing landing pages and different designs that you want to do. It's a WYSIWYG editor, so it allows you to go in there without any developer knowledge and create a page within minutes. So it's very, very easy to use. And I've used that even in ways that you wouldn't expect that product to be used. So not just creating like landing pages, but creating semi-permanent pages that we would send traffic to or test with SEO or different things like that. So I really recommend that tool for someone who wants to create the landing experience. And then of course, Optimizely was a tool that I used throughout my time to change and personalize things for the viewer when they reach a more permanent page. So again, you're able to take a bit of traffic and point it to a landing page and then change aspects of that page. So you can test images, you can test words and different phrasing and communication. And we actually use this as a hacky way in General Assembly actually to test self-enrollment as a strategy for new users that were coming to our page and wanting to learn like HTML and CSS. So we created a whole experience of self-enrollment, meaning like you could actually pay on the website without even having to involve the developers. So again, it was just a test, and we ended up having to use that. Of course, I use Bitly as well, so it's just a very, very easy way of understanding the different channels that you're sending to your site and understanding exactly the activity of those channels and the content that you're producing. So it kind of gives you that one view mindset that you're not able to see very quickly because it's all in real time. So I would say those three I definitely use a lot.
Yeah, Elle, John, do you guys have any tools to add?
Yeah, I mean, you took the big ones. There are a few in addition to that, so I can go a little more granular. So Optimizely, Unbounce, amazing tools. There's a version of it. It's called Dynamic Yield. It's super great. We use them at MakerBot. They're an Israeli-based company, and what it helped us do is it really helped me. I know how to code a little bit, but really not enough to usually make really advanced kinds of multivariate tests. I was able to very easily just put testing scripts all over any page that I wanted to. And the reason why that was valuable for MakerBot is we're trying to sell what a $4,000 to $7,000 product to someone who has very recently learned about 3D printing. So in the entire conversion journey, I was adding a lot of steps between awareness and actual even product consideration. You need to know why the whole industry is important. So we knew a lot of people were coming to our site, but bounce rate was super high. So what I wanted to do was put all these different scripts all over the page so that based on what they did and all these different tags, I can then generate or dynamically show them different content on the page. I know Optimizely, Unbounce does stuff like this. Dynamic Yield just made it a lot even simpler than those tools.
Yeah.
Another one that I like using, and I always refer students to this one, it's if this, then that. You can use it for consumer use or business use. One of my colleagues even, so it's a way to, it's simple logic. If you do something technical, then it'll trigger something else. On the consumer side, one of my colleagues even has her Fitbit rigged to her Facebook account. So if she doesn't hit the amount of steps for her goal that day, it'll automatically at 5 p.m. tell everyone that she's lazy, to everyone there. But for business accounts, when I take on smaller clients who don't have a good Twitter following, We simply automate people who are using hashtags on the Twitter lists. It's a one-time way to give them a notification without bugging them. And that's a really small example, but it's a platform you can also use without really any coding. And the third one, not to get off my soapbox soon, is a platform called Kimono. It allows you to create APIs just with JSON. So again, for those of you that are not as strong as coding, just like me, APIs are your best friend for growth hacking as you're really figuring out the ins and outs and unique ways to use platforms that no one else can do unless you pursue this tactic. So those are my top three.
You guys are very tech-oriented. I don't think I use any of those tools, except if this, then that. I do use that one. And that one has proved really great, especially for conferences and things like that, where our sales guys are attending a conference and then they can put an if this, then that. Like if they use this hashtag for this conference, then add them to my conference list. And then that's a great way for the sales team to kind of reach out to those people individually and be like, hey, you're at this conference, like, let's meet up. But I think that is kind of my thing when it comes to tools, is using the simplest tools but in unique ways. So, I mean, the number one for me growth hacking tools are social media tools. So how can you use those more, without talking about the benefits of Twitter and LinkedIn and things like that, how can you use them more efficiently? And for me, it's all about, for example, like think about an out-of-office responder. So when you're out of office for a week, you get this annoying email that says they're gone, contact this other person, I'll be back in a week or whatever. Well, what our team does is they put in unique things like, I'm gone because I'm on vacation in sunny Mexico. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see all my pictures with my fam, and things like that. It's just a little way to kind of integrate business and personal in a way that really gets that relationship and keeps that relationship going even while you're away. And also using things like even Jiffy. When you're a lot of our sales guys will send a GIF instead of a response whenever somebody's not responding. And anybody that's in sales knows that a lot of times you get ghosted. You write somebody an email, they don't respond back ever, and you just write them back and say, just following up on our email, and they still don't get back to you. So our team started employing GIFs of, for example, Cookie Monster drumming his fingers on the table, just waiting, waiting. And we found that those emails get way more responses than the ones that are just following up. So kind of integrating those tools and using those basic tools, email, autoresponders, to kind of generate more buzz and more excitement around you and what you're doing. And the same goes for social media as well. If you can use social media to like garner more attention, to bring your personal life out on Twitter or LinkedIn, then that can really harness some buzz as well. So just kind of finding those unique ways to use existing tools.
I actually really like that point. Being simple, like using the tools that you already have. The ones that we talked about, some of them are not easy to get started with. What's really important about them is that you should use the tools that you have in your toolkit already to the best of your ability with growth hacking. So I really like the social tools that you were talking about. It's very, very easy. It's like you don't have to really think about it or set up, or there's no integrations that you have to really need. And then just on that side, because I come from a paid marketing background as well, like being able to test different audiences through paid is really important and also extremely easy to do. You just need to set aside a little bit of your budget to test out a new audience, and you already know that platform. You already know that you have those resources as well. So you're able to kind of use the resources that you already have to target, the different groups or different sort of examples of people that you think you test through growth hacking methods. So definitely like use what you already have to the best of their abilities, and then sort of think about what are some tools that I need because I can't do anything more than with what I already have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same with even unpaid things. You can still test unpaid social atmospheres and see which works best. I mean, even if you're on LinkedIn, I don't know if you guys are in LinkedIn groups, but they're like the most annoying thing ever because everybody's just posting URLs to stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, This is not like building any kind of thought leadership. We're all just posting links to stuff and nobody's reading it. But if you post a post that doesn't have a URL in it and you just write, hey guys, I want some advice. I'm starting launching a channel partner strategy. I'm wondering if anyone's ever done that. Does anybody have any advice on that? Oh my gosh, every time I do that, I get, hundreds of people post on that and want to comment and want to have a discussion. So even just experimenting with social, 2 different ways you could do something and see which works best can already give you a huge advantage.
Yeah, and actually bridging that to the physical world. When I was at MakerBot, I was on the team that did CES when we won top 20 booth by Time Magazine. And it was super simple. All we asked ourselves was, compared to the rest of the booths that we know of, what will they look like and what should we look like? So how should we stand out physically? And the hacking actually just ended up literally where we put people, and then as someone sees the booth, what colors and what do they see? We decided to just tell the story from our users, so we invited GE, Martha Stewart, and this 5th grade class to come and talk on behalf of us. We split the amount of MakerBot employees that usually go there and talk to people, and we just brought our customers instead. And very simple things that we have at our disposal, but it made a very large difference that year.
I love that. That's awesome.
Zero tech involved.
That was a 5th grade class that came.
They're just so generous.
It definitely goes to show how, it's not the tools that you use, but it's how you use them. So that's great.
Yeah, I find if you can do a lot of stuff without developers, you'll get a lot done, because the resources are always limited, and it's definitely an area.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'm going to just hop over to some of the questions that we've gotten from the audience and pull those in. So the questions we got from the audience. Next one is, a lot of skeptics say that growth hacking is unsustainable, that it's all smoke and mirrors. How do you growth hack in a way that's scalable?
I mean, so for me, I think it's a really relative question. So the people that say that growth hacking is really, short term, in some ways that it is true, right? Like, you're trying different strategies and you're testing different things to see some short term growth. But it's really important to take that knowledge of what you've learned during that process and then incorporate that more into the long-term strategies that you have. So, an example actually is something that we did at Bitly, and did a similar test actually at General Assembly as well, with that whole like self-enrollment, the whole kind of self-checkout flow for a B2B business that didn't really exist beforehand. So we created a page, we sent traffic to it through paid media, through social, through email marketing, just to test different things and different messaging on the page, like what would get someone to pay for our product without speaking to a sales rep. And we found certain things that worked and certain things that didn't, of course, and we were able to take some of that knowledge and then incorporate that into the flow that became our long-term strategy. So I think like that's what's really important when you think about it's not unsustainable. It's just that you have to take what you're learning and then drive that right back into the regular strategies that you would do in your business.
I think the other thing is growth hacking is very proactive, and usually that involves one person at the company being very proactive and saying, I'm going to post this on Twitter, and following up on all the responses and posting unique things to Instagram. And usually why that's possible is because that person has a lot of free reign in the company, and so they're allowed to do that, which is very, very common with small companies. That person can really just take those ideas and run with them. I think where it becomes unscalable or unsustainable is if the company grows significantly to the point where there's an entire marketing team and there starts to be a bureaucracy around what's okay to post and what's not okay. Sometimes what can happen is that company can lose their conversational voice, and it suddenly becomes this almost automated, bot-sounding, message-producing, weird kind of speech. And everybody has to review it, and everybody has to approve it, and it has to meet the brand voice for what that company defines as that brand voice. And that can be really hard to do with larger companies. So to me, the way to keep growth hacking sustainable is to still allow that person free reign and let somebody at the company completely own whatever tool they're using, whether it's somebody that really is owning their Instagram, somebody really owns their Twitter, or the other tools, John and Saya have mentioned, to really give those people freedom to speak in that voice and to continue to do so is, I think, the real way to keep it sustainable.
When I hear people telling me that it's just smoke and mirrors, it's usually, I can tell based on the tense that they're using. These people are usually saying, and this goes back to the discipline, I'm such a broken record, but these people are usually saying, well, I tried growth hacking and it didn't work. Whereas growth hackers will say, well, I'm trying growth hacking and some things don't work, but some things do work. So if it's built into your strategy, then you're constantly trying it. It's not one and done. And if that's how you're treating it, then it's definitely not going to be sustainable. You're not going to try it the first time and like hit gold.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, John, to just keep pushing until you find the thing that that sticks. All right, so for everyone on the line, just another reminder to you can drop in any of the questions that you have in that question box on the control panel. I'm going to pull another question here from the audience. Question is, in that same vein, what are some metrics and goals that you think about a lot as a growth hacker?
That's a really hard one, obviously.
I
Especially
mean,
since growth hacking is so tied to marketing, there's not a lot of metrics that you can use besides your following, your like increasing your following, increasing your reach, increasing your mailing list. Obviously, those things are all things you can track, but there's so many companies that are small but scrappy, and the numbers don't make much of a difference. And so it's more about, I think, keeping the conversation going and keeping the relationship strong than the metrics. And while that is really hard to measure, you can create goals around it. And I think that's kind of what we do at EveryoneSocial. Is I have a set of goals that I'm working towards of like, I think these things would be big if we did a podcast, if we did this conversation, Twitter chat, if we did these things, like I want to try all of these things. And then you can kind of gauge how they work based on interest. So if you have a podcast, if you have a lot of questions coming in via email, if people are participating in the Twitter chat and actually writing back, or if they're not, maybe it's not the right channel or venue. So to me, it's more about engagement and tracking engagement on a various campaign and seeing whether or not it's effective.
I think you're going to need like specific metrics for each channel too, and each kind of tactic. If I would go a little old school here when breaking up the metrics, but I'll use pirate metrics, the Dave McClure strategy, where you have acquisition, activation, retention, referral. But so the metrics that matter to me are, how do you get someone from one stage to the next? And if that is click-through rate, which is very often the case, then yeah, that'll be my primary metric. But what does click-through rate or growth look like for that tactic or channel? So followers for social media sites for sure, but if you're trying to use any of the new features that came out recently for the social media sites, such as Facebook Marketplace, or the news, like the actual news feed there, or Snapchat augmented reality, what are the unique metrics that get that person from that platform back to your website, to your app, or so forth? And it's not one size fits all, and it's going to change, but that's how I would think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think you should start simple with the metrics that you're tracking. Really have a main metric for the experiment that you're testing. If it's something like getting new customers, then that's like a very simple metric to use, and just to see the channels that you're sending and the strategies that you're trying, and being able to track, is that actually working? Are you actually seeing some growth and some conversions over time? So yeah, I would just have a main metric for every experiment that you're trying, and then really use that as the driving method of whether or not the strategy is working or not.
Awesome, thanks. So we're just going to pull one more question from the audience here. For everyone on the line, we're going to, Zay and I are going to stay on the line a little bit after we finish, so you can feel free to keep putting in questions here, or you can actually tweet at us at bit.ly with the hashtag growthhacking101. So the last question, Last question that I thought was really relevant is what's next for growth hacking in 2017? Um, yeah, what are some of your predictions there? And, John, can feel free to start.
Yeah, there's a few that I've really wanted to write about for a while, so I'll just like word vomit it here instead. No, but the themes are, I think, augmented reality, natural linguistic search, and then bridging this ideas of pixels to atoms. Uh, for augmented reality, if this is, I just tested out the Snapchat goggles. They're so cool, and I have no idea how we're going to use them for marketing, but something's going to happen there. And then as like Alexa, Google Home continue being so dominant and triggering all these natural search results, I think the way that people bid on keywords and keyword phrases is going to change as more and more of the traffic is natural linguistic search. So show me, or instead of best restaurants, it'll be show me the best restaurants in my neighborhood. And then the last one is better bridging pixels to atoms. I was recently at a hyperlocal data science conference, and Yelp was talking about one of their ways to bridge people who are using the app on their phone and that mobile ID to the actual credit card number that is used for transaction within the store. So I think that itself is really powerful. These larger brands that are paying top dollar to figure out that data and kind of like hack it together are going to be able to do it a little easier.
Yeah, talk about good strategy with Snapchat and those glasses. I feel like that rollout was great. Like you're really trying to create demand and they're targeting the right types of people, the right influencers. Like the social strategy that Elle was talking about, I think was pretty evident in that one. Yeah, I totally agree. I think like cross-platform communication and really like testing out these different platforms is really, really important. I myself have like 4 or 5 different devices that I use every day. Being able to talk to me on those different devices is just going to be more and more important as these get incorporated into day-to-day life. So I think the Alexa example and Siri is a great example of something that we're seeing as a new emerging way of asking questions and searching for answers that hasn't really been tapped into yet. So I see a lot of that sort of being the next steps here, where you're trying to figure out what are the different channels and what are the different platforms that my audience is using, and trying to figure out the best methods to reach that audience.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways to reach that audience is I see being one of the future things is advocacy and affiliates. So it's awesome to have these, to be pushing out information and content from a corporate channel. It's quite another thing for somebody you know or somebody you follow on Instagram or somebody whose blog you read to mention something and then you find out about it. I mean, that's how I find out about almost anything these days, is because of somebody I'm following on Instagram or somebody mentioned something on Twitter that I find interesting. And I think that's becoming more and more of a business strategy and more of a marketing strategy. Even it was written about in the New York Times recently that Into the Glass and Glacier had this new approach to selling where rather than just kind of launching their new product line online and then pushing that through their corporate channels, they sent 150 of their top bloggers and top influencers in the makeup market their new line for free, and then it gave all of those people an affiliate link so that anybody that wanted to buy that makeup, the blogger that mentioned it would get a small cut. And so by doing that, all of a sudden we're hearing about this makeup or this new product line from somebody who we trust and are invested in, rather than hearing it from a brand that we know is not as trustworthy as an individual. They're always trying to, peddle their own product. So to hear it from somebody else and to read a review, I think is a lot more influential. And so I kind of see that as being a big future in growth hacking, is kind of using influencers in the space. I mean, everybody's got a personal brand now. Use those personal brands to the advantage of the company and have them touting the message instead of the company itself.
Well, yeah, definitely a lot of exciting things coming up for growth hacking in 2017. So really excited to see how that all pans out. So yeah, thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Saya, Elle, and John for joining us today and giving us this time. For everyone on the line, just a reminder that a recording of this webinar will be sent to your email address with which you registered. And again, Say and I will be staying on the line on chat for a little bit after this, so you can feel free to type in questions here or to join us, tweet us at bit.ly with the hashtag growth hacking 101. Thanks so much. Have a
Cool.
great afternoon.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.